Good morning, greetings and salutations, everybody out there in YouTube land. I'm your host once again, Dan Thornton, and I'm sure you're tuning in today and saying, "Hey, what the heck? The show is not supposed to come on to 7, but unfortunately, if you're used to Lions Talk Live, yes, we normally run from 7 to roughly 8 a.m. Every day of the week. But today, because I have some personal coaching assignments that I didn't even think about until late last night, they start at 7:30 a.m. today. So I've got to take off here in about, we'll say 20, 25 minutes to go be Coach Thornton for a bit. So I get a lot of you guys will be able to watch this later in the day. That's one of the beauties of YouTube is that you can watch it whenever you click play. So I do apologize for anybody who maybe set their schedule specifically 7 o'clock for this. All right, with all that out of the way, if you're new to Lions Talk Live, please consider subscribing. Really trying to make a push to get to 4,700 by kickoff against the Saints. So a little over 10 days. I mean, if we can hit 48, that'd be even great. Don't forget to hit the like button, all that stuff. Now, with all that said and out of the way, you're watching Lions Talk Live. Please also consider if you're ever looking to buy or sell property in the state of Michigan or even beyond the state of Michigan, give me a call or shoot me a text, 269-998-2384. I've been in the industry for over 30 years now. So let me work on your behalf to save you some money. All right, let's get into this. So obviously we all know that Thanksgiving was a bit of a turkey stuffer for the Lions. They didn't play great. Offensive line woes stood up. Defensive line woes stood up. Turnovers stood up. You get the idea. There were a calamity of things. If you watched yesterday's show or even the post-game show after the Thanksgiving Day debacle, you understand I broke down some film for you guys, and I figured since we're doing kind of a compressed Lions Talk Live today, we go ahead and talk about a few things. So what can the Lions do to augment some of the things teams have been exposing as far as issues with the Lions the last, I guess you could say, month or so now? What did the Chargers do to start this trend of teams offensively attacking our team? What did they expose? What can we say that the Bears exposed from a defensive standpoint? So let's start with the offense and the Chargers. The Chargers knew that in the first quarter of that game, Aaron Glenn really was dominating them. And yes, take a moment of pause and let that sink in. Aaron Glenn and his defense were doing a phenomenal job the first quarter. One could even say the first quarter and a half or so of the second quarter before all of a sudden a light switch went on with the Chargers and they figured out what to do. So what I want you to do, if you go back and watch that game, I want you to watch the pre-snap adjustments that Herbert and a bunch of other people on the offensive sidelines identified as far as tells for the Detroit Lions. So what do I mean by that? In the first quarter, in the first part of the second quarter, the Lions defense is owning Herbert. But then a brilliant idea comes forward. We're going to basically no huddle. And no, we're not going to try to get the snaps off, 10, 15 seconds after a play is ended. Not that type of no huddle. What they did is they didn't huddle and they went into a package. And now this gave Herbert the majority of the play clock to try to put guys in motion, flat routes, etc. Try to expose what did Glenn call on that particular play. So this gives Herbert a big idea on what the probability is to throw the ball and where the openings are going to be. Dr. Detroit, yeah, how you doing? Sorry, I'm on the air early today. Offensive line was weak, and Goff blows with an offense that ain't perfect. Defense needs some real talent on the D-line. We need a stud cornerback, bare minimum. Okay. I mean, I don't disagree with you, man. Brent, what do you got? Good morning. Any news on what was going on with Kirby's sideline? To me, Brent, that's just normal stuff, especially in the heat of the moment. He knew he blew a few assignments. I think it's being a little overdone. I hate to say it, but I think it's anybody who's been around an NFL sideline or a college sideline, why does that happen on all the time? No, but does it happen a lot of the time? Yeah. So I wouldn't make too much of it. Now, with that also being said, Brent, if it continues to happen, then you've got something there. But it doesn't seem like in the last year and a half that this is the norm for Kirby Joseph. So I don't make too much of it. JDC, what I got? Morning all for the swamps of the UP of Michigan. Well, good morning to you too. And again, I don't know where you guys tuned in, but I've got to take off before 7 o'clock today, just because I do have some coaching stuff I have to get done today. That starts at 7:30, so got to have a little drive time there. But anyways, so where was I going with all this as far as the things that have been exposed? I think, most of the coaching staff and the players are going to be gone until Sunday night, maybe Monday morning, depending on whatever Campbell had set up for them. Now, if while that is true, from Kentucky, hey, good morning, Seymour Butts. All right, have a good morning, man. Um, Dan Campbell and stuff. I would say this: it's not the end of the world what has happened, but you need to identify the fact that this is 3 straight games now. Teams have found holes in you, and they're all copying the same mechanics. Bergs, what do you got? Good morning, Lions favorite Dan. Good morning, yeah. And again, sorry that I got to get on early today, but I got to get out and get coaching here or leave to go coaching in about 20 minutes. So I'm trying to get you guys at least something today. But anyways, so Campbell really needs to make some adjustments, and that includes Ben Johnson, that includes Aaron Glenn. You guys have heard me kind of say that for a while now. Ben Johnson's become fairly predictable, and the other part of it is, there's a great quote I heard yesterday. Something Charles Barkley said: "There's no such thing as sophomore slumps. Everybody's just got film on you now." So, and I think that's 100% true, especially with Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson, I think, he needs to really shoulder, and this is just my opinion. The more I went back and watched the tape and the film, I think a lot of the blame for the offensive woes, for not just the offense as a whole, but the offensive line, Goff, at least the last game, the Thanksgiving Day debacle, that needs to really go on Ben Johnson's shoulders. We can all him and haw about the defense. I'm going to say this: the defense looked pretty damn good in the second half. Yes, the first half, Green Bay knew exactly what to do against us, and that is on Aaron Glenn. Make no mistake about it. They wanted the ball first, which, you guys know, most people don't take the ball. They defer until the second half, and they knew exactly those first couple drives, where to throw it, where to hit us. Now, after that point, I think you got to put the blame on the offense, because the turnovers, the fumble six, all that stuff, the short fields that you kept giving the Packers. So the fact that we were actually in the game is a little bit of a credit to the defense, at least in my opinion. The offense, though, I think Ben Johnson, you heard me talk about it yesterday and probably even the day before. I think he really needs to look in the mirror and say, hey, teams have figured out a lot of what we're trying to do. Because, again, talking about sophomore slumps, that's not a real thing. It's just everybody knows your tendencies now. They've had an offseason to prepare for you. They've had, time during the regular season, especially since you're talking later in the season. Last year, when the Lions made that miraculous comeback, as far as to get to 9-7, probably a lot of teams weren't paying much attention to you, to be honest, at least during the majority of it. Maybe late in the year they started doing so, but last year and this year, you've now established a lot of baselines for Ben Johnson, his tendencies, and that needs to go to Jared Goff as well. But you could remember with the Chicago Bears, we talked about it, man, everybody and their mother was jumping on those flat routes. They were all trying to play zone underneath and have a linebacker spy, not to contain Goff's running ability, but to contain his passing lanes for mid-range routes. Ben Johnson's really going to have to come out when we play the Saints and establish there's a new trend line. We're going to take some deep shots, and not just when we're scrambling to make a huge fourth quarter comeback. He is going to have to identify that Goff appears to be at his best almost when he's in the 2-minute drill. And if I'm Ben Johnson right here now, I'm going to say this: from the word go, from that first possession, we're being aggressive in 2-minute offense. You're going to put your best personnel out on the field, as far as, Laporta, probably 2 or 3 receivers, 1 running back. And you know what? That's going to force defenses out of so much zone underneath coverage, flat route coverage. At least if you start pushing the ball down the field in the sidelines and the center of the field, the center field against the zone should be a little bit tougher, because most teams are playing a single high safety. But that's a different point. Big M, let me get you in here real quick. Good morning, Dan. I agree with the Lions being exposed. It is apparent Goff's lack of mobility is a big concern moving forward. Lions cannot have Goff turning the ball over. Yeah, I 100% agree with you, M. Teams are daring him to run. They are playing, 7 deep for the most part. They're blitzing every once in a while for sure. And they are saying, hey, our front 4 is going to have to come get you. And that's the other thing that's going to have to come back. You've all heard me give Hank Fraley tons of praise. But his offensive line, they weren't just exposed a little bit in the last game. They were roasted. They were carved up. And that is a Turkey Day pun. So, anyways, if I'm Ben Johnson, you got to kind of go in to this weekend off, and you're probably not on vacation or anything. You probably are spending the majority of that time saying, "Hey, what do we have to do to try to correct some of this?" And you're probably going to have to team up with Fraley to try to say, "Hey, we've got to try to fix some of this," because right now, I mean, I get that Big V, Jonah Jackson are gone. Okay, you're beyond that at this point. You got to worry about next man up, and I get some of these guys aren't the same level as Jonah Jackson or Glasgow or whatever, but they've got to do a whole lot better than what they did the other day. All right, Big M. I'm concerned that Glenn's defense is too predictable, and that's where I was going with that. It's early in the game. Obviously the Packers had identified what they were going to do against us. They knew exactly where to get their best chances or return on investments on each play. They put us on our heels. I will say this, them though, like I was saying a little bit ago, I will give Glenn some credit though, because really after the first quarter, the defense was pretty good. In the second quarter, you could say they were very good. It's just the only problem is you can't wait until halftime to get things corrected. And that's where I think both Ben Johnson, Dan Campbell, and Aaron Glenn are struggling. They just aren't identifying the weaknesses fast enough to make quicker changes. Maybe they will by the end of the year, but I'm going to also say this. The Saints game, I don't want to overreact and say, hey, the sky is falling because we're 8-3. We go out and win the Saints game, we're 9-3. You know what? You're holding serve. We'd all probably should be cheering for the Bears this weekend because if they beat the Vikings, that obviously helps us out exponentially. I'm really impressed how many of you guys are in here this early because I was like, man, I'm going to be just talking to myself this morning. Mile marker, good morning. Still behind golf, but I know that it won't help if coaches don't get it together. We had Stafford, and he too turned the ball over often. He was sacked often. Yeah, and mile marker, to your point, that's where I think Aaron Glenn is going to have to say early in the games, we got to get after the other team's quarterbacks. We have got to make them uncomfortable. Yes, we might give up some plays, but aren't you doing that already? Aren't you already giving up some deep shots? Aren't you already letting teams move down the field? I mean, let's also be fair. What the Chargers went 5 straight drives with a touchdown. I want to say the Bears opened their game with 2 straight touchdowns. So that's 7 straight drives with TDs. So now, while I'm also giving them credit for the second half of the Green Bay game, I mean, stuff like that just can't happen. Where I'm going with that, though, is on the opposite side of that, you need to put pressure at all costs and not rely on your front four. These guys can't do it. Hutchinson, maybe next year he'll return to form. He'll get healthy, rested, or whatever. But the other part is teams have clearly identified he's not what he was at the start of the year. He is getting a lot of single block coverage, and he's not winning right now he's not doing so well with it. We'll put it that way. All right, Lorraine, what do you got? It's professional sports. Everything is under a microscope, but it's a long season. I think the coaches are experiencing some burnout, maybe. It could be something, what I would say is, I've used this phrase for years. Victory can defeat you. And I do think because last year, let's use last year as an example, they had to keep rethinking things, keep scrambling for ideas because they were 1-6. And when you're 1-3, 1-4, 1-5, 1-6, you've got nothing to lose but try new things. They tried them out, and you know what? The vast majority of things weren't working early until they struck gold. This year, obviously, they've struck gold. I mean, we can all say what we want, and it stinks that we lost on Thanksgiving. At the end of the day, we're still 8-3. We're still one of the top record-wise, probably top, 5 or 6 in the NFL. I mean, it is early. I haven't had a Mountain Dew, and yeah, I'm not quite all awake. But you get my point that it's not the end of the world. Excuse me. The coaches are going to have to kind of go back in and grind and not just say, hey, we got here at this point of the season because we did these things. I understand you did these things and it worked, but you need to also understand in the last month, teams have really picked up on what you're doing and really exposed some chinks in your armor. You need to make some new adjustments now. Bergs, it's scary how the Lions coaches don't adapt and adjust situations during the games. Seems like every time they face a veteran coach, they get totally exposed. Well, I think you're 100% right, man, because the veteran coaches, well, they have what our coaches don't have. They've got more experience. And that's just part of it. I mean, I hate saying it, man. I know I went through it and I got my butt kicked a lot as a younger coach when I was inexperienced because when somebody did something, when they put it on the field offensively or defensively, I didn't always have answers for it. And you can ask other people stuff, but your brain and your eyes still have to be able to identify in real time and come up with those answers instantly. And while I do want to say I think all three of our head coaches have improved. There's still a lot they don't know. So I do agree with you, Bergs. Hater's house. I do love that name, man. Offense can't put the defense in tough spots with turnovers and failed fake punts. I 1,000% agree there. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier is that, you look at all the turnovers that we had, especially given the Packers short fields. And I think you do need to give the defense some credit. I mean, I get the first couple drives for the Packers. They roasted the D, but after that, they did. I mean, give Glenn some credit, give the players some credit. They stood tall. But you can't keep scoring points for the other team and giving them points. I mean, even with a fake punt, we kind of the defense kind of bailed us out a little bit. Max, what do you got? Goff's ability to read the field and make quick decisions is regressing from my point of view. His O-line was not up to par, but players were wide open. Yeah, and some of that is, at least my thought on that is, go back to the Bears game. They did something defensively with so much the underneath and spy coverage and dropping seven that really exposed some of Goff's tendencies where his comfortableness is as far as getting rid of the ball early, not allowing himself to take hits. They clearly have identified in formations, here's the primary, secondary progressions for Goff, and maybe sometimes the third. And they're taking those away, and Goff's having to scramble to go through reads to try to find now the fourth read, fifth read, etc. The problem with that, like you pointed out, is the offensive line is not giving him that kind of time to do that. Now, ideally, that's what zone coverages are supposed to do. Take away the quick intermediate routes, the middle routes. But man, you start giving people 5-6 seconds, the zone breaks down just because it has to cover too much ground. Now, conversely, look at our zone defense versus other teams. We're giving them 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds, and that's when they're hitting the shots. The zone is on a lot of plays holding up quick, but it's almost impossible to have it hold up that long, and that's why you're seeing quarterbacks do well against us, in my opinion. Haters, you got it. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Dr. D. Big M, do you think that Glenn might be losing the locker room? First bugs and now Kirby's issues on the sideline. Hopefully it doesn't lead to bigger problems. The Kirby thing, I'll say this, just from a coaching standpoint, if you think this is Kirby's norm, then yeah, that's something. Do I think he was frustrated with some stuff? Maybe somebody got on him too, and he knows he got beat. Now you got somebody else, saying, "Hey, man, you got beat." In the heat of the game, from what I could see, I didn't really think it was a big deal, man. Just a guy having a moment. But if we see it again and again, then you got something. As far as the bugs issue, yeah, I mean, that one's probably a little bit different just because it's a repeatable thing. I do think some of it with bugs is that the coaches basically have decided to go on with other players over him, and there's a multitude of reasons. We could do probably a 2-hour video on that, just breaking it down. But at the end of the day, you got to wait until that's part of sports at any level. Somebody else gets your spot, it's your job to re-earn it, and for this point, Bugs hasn't been able to do that. Bergs, 100% haters house. Yeah, I think he had a real good point. Dr. D, I think there are a few problems not being discussed. There could be. I'll put it that way. Haters house. If we don't turn the ball over and punt when it was fourth down, we win the game. Yeah, I would agree with that too. The turnovers the last two games have killed us. Now you could say we've played back-to-back, arguably our worst games, well, outside the Baltimore game, I guess, some of our worst games of the year. And you know what? And we've won one out of the two. So that's the good thing. But, yeah, they're going to have to clean some things up, and they've got to take care of that ball. James, since Hutch intercepted that pass and got pounced on his hip, he hasn't been the same. Playing hurt? I believe he probably is. And, yeah, he's probably not 100%. The other part, James, is how often does he come off the field? And you guys have heard me say it. He looks tired and fatigued to me. And really, at this point of the year, I don't see that changing. And not unless they're going to give him a game or two off. But even then, you need him out there so bad just because there's no other threat. He's He is playing fatigued and probably hurt. Yes. My marker. Could you guess at who AG listens to? Is Sheila hands off? I think she understands the fans well. I don't think she's probably in the ears of any of the coordinators. If she's going to be in the ears of one of the coaches, it would be Campbell. And I don't get the impression she's doing that, but I've been wrong before, man. Defense. Tar. Oh boy. All right, Big M. I know it's Campbell's gig to go on fourth downs, but in my opinion, it's getting a little bit out of control. Yeah, I did think the Packers game, it was basically Campbell of a year ago, or maybe even his first year. So I agree. It reeked of desperation to me. Doing it once in a while, that's something, but they were rolling those dice all the time. It was like watching somebody at the casino. Man, I got to make that money back. Dr. D, right. Haters House, not to pile up on Goff, but we will. It seems like 75% of his throws are wobbly ducks. Yeah, I mean, when he gets rattled, man, his mechanics break down. And you go and watch his release point and where he's throwing it from. Yeah, it's rushed. He's trying to get rid of it. And I get it. When he's under pressure, he gets hit. He doesn't do well in those situations. Ryan, what do you got? Most of the blame needs to go on MCDC. No field goals and fake punts put us in a hole. I agree. I'm not discrediting that at all. Don Burr, hey, what's up, Don? All right. It's not 7 a.m. yet. No, I've got to be done here in about 3 minutes because I got coaching to do, and I didn't even think about it until like late last night. I was like, wait a minute, I got to be here for coaching. Wait a minute, I got Lions Talk Live. How am I going to make this work? So I went on at 6:30. I'm going to give you guys about 25 minutes, and then I got to go. Well, 3 more minutes. Joe, what do you got? Jared needs to make decisions. Pass rush totally flusters him. I agree. Completely black and white difference in his performance when the O-line can give him time. Yeah, and that's been kind of his rap sheet. It hasn't been for a while that you give this dude's time. He's pretty dang good. You let him take some hits, especially early in the game. But I will say this, Joe, a lot of quarterbacks, you get to them early in the game, they do get rattled. And it's not always the easiest thing for them to emotionally calm back down. Bug says 2 thumbs. He needs to put one out. Yeah, well, that's probably also true. What do you got? Smile and plain teams are tired of hearing about media praise Detroit. Probably all true with that, especially when we haven't won anything. So they're giving us the best shot, prove that we are that team. Yeah, I would agree. There's probably a lot of truth to probably other teams getting fatigued with the media glory that the Lions are getting. But the other part of it is the Lions, just because their record. I mean, you're a team that's, struggling to be 500 or right around there. You got a chance to beat the number one team or arguably one of the top teams in the league. Well, that's going to pump you up. If you're a competitor, let alone an athlete, now, I mean, coach, player, whoever, water boy, you're pumped up for that. Nobody gets pumped up for the 1-15 team. Nobody's beating their chest going, man, we just beat the 0-29 team. But when you're talking about being 8-2 and everybody's telling you, hey, everybody in the national media is picking Detroit to win this game, you want to prove them wrong. I mean, that's just part of it, man. Haters, I agree with that for sure, Don. Yeah. Let me enjoy my mini buy. I'm hoping for the best. I recall the San Francisco 49ers lost 3 in a row. Still have pride. Yeah. And I think you're 100% right with that as well, Miles. I mean, the NFL, it's a tough season. A ton of games. Everybody's decent. Everybody's got good players. I mean, sometimes even the backups can beat you. So to your point, yeah, the 49ers, everybody was saying they were the most undefeatable team ever when they were 5-0. Oh, they're trash when they lose 3 in a row. Imagine this fan base if we lost 3 in a row. Woo! This would be therapy session, not the Lions Talk Live. But all right, guys, I'm going to have to get going because I got to get in the car and drive for a while to get to this thing. So I hope you all have a great one. If you enjoy the content and you haven't yet subscribed to Lions Talk Live, please consider doing so. Don't be afraid to hit that thumbs up button. And if there is some sort of breaking news on it's later today when coaching's done, I'll try to get on the horn and let you guys know. Otherwise, have a great one, and we'll see you all tomorrow morning at our regular time, 7 o'clock on the next Lions Talk Live. See y'all.